your email marketing campaigns actually working? Have you set up all the automations and funnels, but you're actually not sure if they're working or not? What if I told you that the secret into capturing more sales is simply by optimizing what you've already got in place? Hey, if we haven't met, I'm Lise Cartwright, online marketing coach, and I love to talk about email marketing, human design, and automating as much as you possibly can when it comes to running your business, particularly when it comes to sales, which is why I'm super excited to chat to you about today's topic so that you can start to understand what is working in your email funnels and what isn't. And that starts by understanding your email marketing metrics, aka your analytics. So let's dive straight in. So the first thing that is probably one of the most important, but also not the most accurately reported, is your open rate. So in your email marketing platform, that is one of the key metrics that your email platform is going to tell you. What is your open rate? Now, this is presented to you as a percentage and will look something a little like this. Your open rate basically tells you how well your subject lines are doing, because that is the only thing that someone is seeing when they click on your email is your subject line. So the better your open rate, the better that your subject lines are working. However, there is a slight flaw in this number that you might be seeing, and you need to just kind of adjust accordingly. So there are a number of personal email services that make it more difficult to determine whether this number is something that you can absolutely count on. So as a rule of thumb, I typically will drop my open rate by around 10% to allow for the fact that Gmail, Yahoo, Microsoft, whichever email service provider your person is using, a lot of them will automatically show that an email has been opened, even if your person hasn't actually opened it. So that's why I allow for about a 10 to 20% drop in the actual open rate that I'm looking at. Industry averages are around 20%, which means you're kind of in the ballpark. It's not good, it's not bad. Anything over that though is doing much, much better. So typically I would like to see around 30% plus to really show that you have an engaged audience and that your subject lines are actually converting. So on average, I experience anywhere from 44 to 47% open rate just on my daily emails. But then if I drop down into my segments, that open rate is a lot higher. We're talking 60, 70%. So this means that I'm at least getting people to open my emails, which means that I must be doing something right when it comes to subject lines. So the first thing that you want to do is go and grab that data for yourself and then see where you're at. So as I said, 20% is about average. If you're below 20%, definitely need to look at a couple of things. One, your subject lines. Two, your email provider. Who are you using right now for your email marketing platform? Not all platforms are created equally. So it depends on who you're with, but for the majority of the main players, and I'm talking about ConvertKit, MailChimp, MailerLite, Constant Contact, Ontraport, any of those ones, you've pretty much got a guarantee that your email is going to at least make it to the server side of the email service providers. Now, if you're using something that's like an all-in-one platform, then you may need to go and investigate to see how well their deliverability is actually doing as far as your emails. So just a couple of things to check, but open rate is the number one most important thing that you want to check first before you move on to the next metric. And then the next metric is your click-through rate. Now, there's actually a couple of different ways that you want to look at this. There is your overall click-through rate for your individual email, and that is based on who it was sent to, right? The click-through rate based on the number of sent. So basically if you had 6,000 people on your email list and you sent it out to 6,000, the normal click-through rate that you'll see is based on that 6,000. The better click-through rate is the click to open rate. So this is where you actually get to see, based on the number of people that opened the email, how many people clicked. And that is the more accurate number that you want to pay attention to. So on average, anything from 1 to 5% is good, right? Anywhere in that range. Anything above that, and you've got something that is hot, hot, hot. So that is the second thing that I would really pay attention to when I was assessing what was working and what wasn't. Now, you can do this by individual email funnel. You can do this just by looking at your overarching analytics, or you can do it by individual broadcast. It's entirely up to you. But certainly for your email funnels, I would be paying attention to your open and click rates when determining what emails are working and what emails aren't. Now, obviously, your click-through rate is going to depend on your call to action. So your open rate directly correlates to your subject line, and your click-through rate directly correlates to your call to action. So those will give you a pretty good idea as to whether what you're doing is working or not working. So the next thing that we're going to look at is your conversion rate. Now, this is not necessarily going to be presented in your email analytics. This is going to be in your sales analytics. So whatever it is that you're using to track sales is how you want to determine that conversion rate. So typically, most people can experience anywhere from 1% to 5% conversion rate. That's kind of the average across the board. So when you're kind of sitting down and mapping out a launch or a promotion and you're wanting to hit a certain number, you're going to use your conversion rate as kind of the starting point to determine whether that is something that you're going to achieve. So I tend to go on the lower side when I'm predicting income, but then obviously once you've gone through that process, you'll have actual numbers. So when you're doing this review process for yourself, what you want to ask yourself is, what is the current conversion rate that I have based off of this funnel, based off of this email, whatever it is that you're looking from a starting point? So your click-through rate versus who actually purchased. And then you can work out what your conversion rate is from there. So basically, we're doing good, better, best. Good is 1%, better is 3%, best is 5%. And then if you're doing anything above 5%, you're hot, 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 right? Like that offer is amazing. Now, it also comes down to how many eyes actually saw the thing that you're offering. So sometimes it might be a little bit trickier to determine your conversion rate. So you may need to do it based off of the people who clicked inside your email, particularly if you're sending traffic from multiple locations to your sales page. So for example, if you were running a campaign on social media as well as email, then your sales page conversion rate is going to be a little bit different because it's taking into account both of those things. So if you're just wanting to see how effective your emails are doing, then just focus on your click-through rate or the number of clicks from inside your emails versus the people who actually purchased, to see how well you're doing. Now, obviously, this is going to be an indication of how well your call to action measures up with your sales page promises, as well as the content in your email. So that will give you a clear indicator. Like I said, we're looking for good, better, best. The next metric that we definitely want to pay attention to is our bounce rate. Now, again, you can either look at this for each individual automation, email sequence, that type of thing, or you can just look at your overarching bounce rate. Now, sometimes this is completely out of your control because sometimes people put in an email address with one letter that isn't right, and then that email will bounce. But sometimes an email will just bounce because there is something that triggers something in their email service provider. So you definitely want to pay attention to your bounce rate. You definitely want to keep that under 3% for every 30-day period. So pay attention to that. It's not a huge thing to be mindful of unless it starts going up. So on average, you should be keeping it below that 3% if you're sending targeted, segmented information to people at the right time, right? That's why it's so important to make sure that you're segmenting before you start setting up your automated email funnel. The next thing that you definitely want to pay attention to is your unsubscribe rate. Now, again, there's two places to look for that. There is your overarching unsubscribe rate, and then there is your unsubscribe rate based on your individual emails. So if you're looking and assessing an automated email funnel, then obviously you're going to do that based on each individual email inside there. And depending on your email platform, you should be able to access that data for yourself. Basically, we are looking to keep our unsubscribe rate below 3% on a rolling 30 days. Now, this is typically doable, right? Nothing you need to worry about. Unsubscribes are completely normal. But what you want to do is definitely track what your norm is. So, for example, I send daily emails. So, I'm going to have unsubscribes happening every single day. On average, I typically have around 7 people unsubscribe for every email that I send out. Totally normal, well under the 3% for rolling 30 days. Now, if I started seeing things like 20, 30 unsubscribes per email, then that would be something that I'd really need to pay attention to. And in that instance, I'm probably going to go and have a look to see if I've got any spam or bots joining my email list, which can then lead to a whole bunch of unsubscribes. So that is something you definitely want to pay attention to. An increase in unsubscribes can also mean that the content that you're providing just isn't resonating, which is also fine unless it is a mismatch, unless you're sitting there going, oh, this should be what my audience is looking for, but now this thing is happening. So pay attention to that, but just know that it's completely normal for unsubscribes. Every single email that you send is going to have people unsubscribing. I send light and love to everybody that does because I trust that the people who remain in my world, who remain in my daily email community, are the people who genuinely want to hear from me. And I only want to talk to the people that I can actually help. So celebrate unsubscribes, but do pay attention to your unsubscribe rate and just make sure that it's not creeping over 3%. Because if it does, then you may find that it's extremely difficult for your emails to actually land in other people's inboxes. And so those are the most important email marketing analytics that you want to check out, particularly when it comes to assessing what's working and what's not. And your most two important ones, particularly when you're assessing an email funnel, is your open rate and your click rate. Then I would also look at your unsubscribe rate for those individual emails, because that'll give you an understanding as to whether the content that you're putting into that email funnel is actually resonating with the people in your world. And so now your next step is to go and have a look at your own analytics. Go through your email funnels, assess your last 30 days of emails. So if you're like me and you're doing daily emails, you might only want to assess the last 7 days, but at a minimum, you definitely want to go and check out what your email funnels are doing and how successful they actually are. And so if you enjoyed the series, I'd love to chat to you more about what it might look like to get support and one-on-one coaching inside the Cultivate membership. Now, if that's something that you're interested in, go ahead and visit hustleandgroove.com/waitlist, and you'll be the first to know when doors open again next month. Otherwise, have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.